This program is intended for a print-impaired audience and is brought to you by MindsEye.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Ear to Ear on MindsEye Radio. Today, our guest is Loretta Graham. She is the CEO of the Girl Scouts of Southern Illinois, and we are sitting in her office in Glen Carbon. And I wanted to say, first of all, welcome, Loretta. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Brian.
And I paused there for a second before I said that because I think this might be one of the times I have to put down a little hash mark or a ticker that I've actually drove to Glen Carbon from Collinsville, and I didn't get stuck in traffic. So I'm considering that a moral victory for myself.
Down 159.
Yes, I did. So
yeah, that's a blessing.
So anyway, that was just a personal note. So Loretta, it is customary for our guests of Ear to Ear on MindsEye Radio to do a self-description for our listeners. So in a nutshell, or in a big nutshell, or all of the above, tell us who Loretta Graham is, please.
Well, I would describe myself as this tall, beautiful black woman, confident and full of wisdom. Mm-hmm. That's how I would describe myself.
And before we started recording, I told you that I was at the gala that you guys just held a couple of weeks ago, and where did you get your passion or compassion to do public speaking? And for our listeners, I told Loretta, I said, I've been to lots of galas in my lifetime where you clap and you say, "Oh, great, the person is done speaking." But when Loretta was done speaking, I was clapping because I was enthused and I wanted to hear more about your message. I mean, you were like in the zone, but where does that compassion come from?
Well, when you're investing in girls and when you want to build girls of courage, confidence, and character, there is a passion. There's just something that is within you. And I'll tell you a story, Brian, when there was 14 of us and my father passed away when we were very, very young. But my mother instilled in us that we could do anything that we set our minds to doing. And I remember when she was pulling me on her cotton sack, and this is why I have that burden and that desire to work so hard for our youth. When she was pulling me on her cotton sack, I felt so sorry for her. I wanted to help her. I was probably about 4 years old, and she said, "No, Loretta," and she called me Loretta May. She said, "No, Loretta May," she said, "you watch me work with my hands, and maybe when you get older, you'll get a good education and you won't have to work hard with your hands like I have to work with my hands." And I'll never forget how I felt that day, Brian, as I walked that cotton field. I made it up in my mind at that very young age that I was going to go to school and I was going to finish my high school and get my high school diploma. I was going to college. I was going to get my college degree, and I was going to be a successful businesswoman, and I was going to be wealthy. Well, I'll tell you, Brian, I'm still working on the wealthy part.
I think we all are, Loretta.
But my mother instilled in me that day what was already there. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need to do with our children, is instill to. So when I talk about Girl Scouting, something magical happens. I feel like we need to make sure that these girls have whatever they need to have, the resources, the community coming together, making sure that they have everything, meeting them where they are at, making sure that they have everything because they're going to change our world. Those girls are going to change. And that's when I speak about Girl Scout and I talk about building girls of courage, confidence, and character, it's easy. It's easy. It comes from the heart because I know that when it comes to being a strong woman has the strength for the journey. But a woman of strength, she knows in her heart that it is because the journey, that's where she became strong.
And that's a powerful message, and I'm married and have two daughters, and I would love it if you would have been a public speaker or a guest speaker at their school. So tell us then a little bit then about your background going to high school and that, and then where did you go on to get your further education, and then we'll transition into how you got into scouting.
Well, as I stated, my mother is the lady that shaped me into being the woman that I am today. And although there was 14 of us, my father died when I was 2. She put 7 of us through college, made sure that we got a good education. And so after graduating from high school, being a basketball star and into really a lot of sports, I couldn't make up my mind whether I wanted to go to college or not. My mother said to me, "You're going to college, oh, you're going to college." So when I did go to college, I thought, I'm gonna be in elementary education. I coached. I coach basketball. I coach swimming. I coach all of these things. So I thought elementary education would be perfect for me. After being there for a semester, that was not my area. I learned that I was really good with working with people. Just working with people as a whole, communicating with people, understanding people, teaching people. So I took that teaching part, and I became, my degree is in communications. And learning so much about communication, it has helped me throughout my journey. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in communication. And with that communication degree, I've worked with nothing but youth. Well, I shouldn't just say that, because you have to have volunteers,
right,
adults, to work
right,
with those youth and community people. So that's kind of my background when it comes to graduating from college and starting myself on my way. I first started in North Dakota. 26 years in North Dakota, Brian. Can you believe that?
Well,
26 years. People always say, why not Minot? Because that's where I was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, freezing is the reason. It's cold. It's cold in North Dakota.
Well, please explain how cold.
It could get like 80 below.
Wow.
And that's cold. But even though I had an opportunity after 5 years to leave North Dakota, I stayed in North Dakota. Really thought, Brian, that I was going to be in North Dakota forever.
Mm-hmm.
But then something magical happened, and it had everything to do with my mother. But being in North Dakota and really, really getting to know Native American reservations, understanding all different kinds of people. Understanding Norwegians, a lot of Norwegians in North Dakota. There's nothing like the home where the buffalo roam. I still got really very close friends that we communicate every day, a lot, not every day, every year, a lot in North Dakota. But there's nothing like the home where the buffalo roam. Now, I grew up in South Carolina, and people say there's nothing more finer than to be in Carolina. But when I came to Illinois, it reminded me of North Dakota and kind of South Carolina together. So I always say I have the joy of Illinois right here.
So you have the cold sometimes
Yes.
to experience North Dakota, and then when we have the unforgiving humidity like we
Yes.
had earlier,
Oh,
take
my
you to
goodness.
South
It's like
Carolina.
South Carolina and North Dakota kind of married each other.
They've all melded together, so you're in a good spot.
Yes.
Alrighty. Loretta Graham is our guest today. She is the CEO of the Girl Scouts of Southern Illinois, and she's joining us on our ear-to-ear program, MindsEye Radio. So was it then, I'm assuming, I know you should never assume, but is North Dakota, I'm sure, is where you started your journey into scouting, is that correct?
Absolutely. I started my journey in Girl Scouting in North Dakota as a membership director, and that is going and recruiting girls from schools and getting them involved in Girl Scouting. And what an amazing journey that was. After being in North Dakota for some time, a search firm by the name of Evergreen Search out of Hackensack, New Jersey. It was the Girl Scouts Total Search Committee that they work with, and was speaking with a guy by the name of Bob Parador, which I think he's still around there. Was told to find me because they needed a CEO for the Girl Scouts in South Carolina. And Brian, I said I would never go back to South Carolina. I had just built my house from the ground up, put everything in it. And then I get this call that they are looking for a CEO. Well, I said, well, don't they have anybody? He said, yeah, they have 165 candidates, but they wanted me to find, talk to you. So I talked to him, and I said, listen, I said once I left those cotton fields of South Carolina and those tobacco fields that I would never go back. But something magical happened to me.
What is that?
My mother came to me in a dream.
Okay.
And my mother, this was in 2007 when this happened. And my mother passed away in 1998. But she came to me in a dream and she said, you're not going to go back to South Carolina. And I said, not going back to those cotton fields. She said, young lady, do you think you have made it this far by yourself? She said, someone in South Carolina helped you to be the woman you are today. Isn't it your responsibility to give back what you receive? Well, that to me, and even when I say it now, there's something
I'm getting
chills
goosebumps.
come
Yeah.
over me. I had no choice but to give back what I received. And I say this to people all the time. Someone helped you to be the person you are today. Isn't it our responsibility to give back? That's why I appreciate Ameren so much. It's not just about monetary. It's about community coming together. Being Ameren is that organization that I feel is in the heart of every community, but with their community at heart. In any way that they can help you out, they're there. And so I say this to adults all the time. Someone helped us to be the people that we are today. Isn't it our responsibility to give back what we receive, to be that vital person in the life of a girl? And I say that because Girl Scouting is my business.
So, the obvious question is, so was it difficult to leave North Carolina, and hold that thought for a second, or was it an easy decision based on the dream that your mother appeared and talked to you and told you to move to South Carolina to give back?
Well, it's kind of twofold. It was difficult at first, but after I had the dream, I knew what I had to do. And it's South Carolina, but after I had the dream, I knew what I had to do. And when I went there, it wasn't easy. I learned some other lessons. The South Carolina that I left was not the same South Carolina that I went back to.
Mm-hmm.
And give you a little bit more history about my family. My mother, she picked cotton, cropped tobacco. She did whatever she did, but she was also the janitor at our school that we all grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this school was a school in Coward, South Carolina. And in Coward, there was more Caucasians than African Americans. But I would tell you, we were the only African American family that lived on this side of the railroad track, and all the other African Americans lived on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
The principal was so touched by my mother. He went to her and he said to her, Loretta, he says, I want your children to be at our school. Well, there was no African American kids at the school, and this was way before all of that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes way back. So we started going to that school. And when it did happen, when schools were integrated and other kids were coming, it didn't affect us at all, because of my mother was that type of person.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never forget my brother being the very first one to go. He said, I don't want to go, because, Mom said, it's coming as sure as you're born. She said, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, it came. So we went to that school. We graduated from that school. And I never experienced, my brother did, but after him, we never experienced what we are experiencing now when it comes to racism and all of that other stuff. We never experienced that in that little town. In South Carolina, Brian.
All because of your mother's relationship, hard work, and relationship with the principal.
It's all about relationships. And, I look at the world today, and which is why I am so in love with Girl Scouting. When Juliet Gordon Lowe first started Girl Scouting, she believed in being inclusive to all. And that's why I can talk about this lady so passionately, because way before the Civil Rights Movement, as a matter of fact, Martin Luther King praised Juliet Gordon Lowe before she passed away. Martin Luther King praised her for the work that she was doing. Way before the Civil African American girls had Girl Scout troops. Asian girls all over the country. It was about women when it came to her. Back in those days, women couldn't even vote. And then we finally got the right to vote. Men kept putting us down, saying, your place is in the home. And she said, oh, no, it's not. Well, how are you going to vote? Somebody's got to stay here with the kids. Juliet Gordon Lowe said, bring your kids. And we will go vote, and we'll watch your kids while you go vote. So the more I just love Juliet Gordon Lowe, the more I read about this lady, the more I admire her legacy.
And how much, let me just double check this real quick. Loretta Graham is our guest on the Ear to Ear program on MindsEye Radio. We are sitting here in her office in Glen Carbon, Illinois, and she is the CEO of the Girl Scouts of Southern Illinois. And we're excited to have her as a guest. And as we were talking at the top, you might be the most compassionate interview I've ever done, which is awesome. And that's going back all the way to my reporting days. So you mentioned a little bit of, some of the issues, struggles, headaches that you had in South Carolina. But aside from that, it's always been about the girls, hasn't it, for you?
It's always. And if you keep that focus there and not be listening to all the other monkeys or whatever is in your head, if you focus on the girl, we are going to get so far if we focus on the girl. When we get out of focus, I said it was a different South Carolina. It was way during the Civil Rights Movement and all of this, when all of that stuff was, we never experienced it. I left a place where we loved in South Carolina. But I just didn't like working in the tobacco fields. That's why I left. But when I went to North Dakota and came back, there was a different South Carolina. It was a cultural shock for me because we were headed where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And simply because we are not focused where we should be focused. When I went there, that council was $1 million deficit. And I said, how am I going to do this? Why did I do this? But the power of one.
Mm-hmm.
One person can touch a life of one, and it keeps going. Triple, quadruple. When I brought the board together, they said, Loretta, we want you out in the community. You're telling the people about this organization. And my house inside the organization in Girl Scouts in South Carolina was broken. And you can't do anything when your house is not clean.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to the board, I said, I hear what you're saying. I said, but when I go out in the community, here's what I'm hearing.
Right.
I said, I've got to clean up here first and then go out in the community. Well, when I left that council and finally got the board to see, we did what we needed to do to get that council back on track. When I went there, I said I was at $1 million deficit. When I left there in 2018 to take this job, I left it with a $1.5 million surplus. That's what community can do. Mm-hmm. And it took organizations and businesses like Ameren, Illinois, coming together with the community at heart. That's how I describe Ameren. An organization, a business that is in the heart of every community, the communities that they're in, but with the community at heart.
So off the beaten path. So before we talk about relocating to Southern Illinois, over the years have volunteers reached back around to what my question being, have some of the young girls or some of the moms or even some of the dads, because you've mentioned that at galas, you've had dads who have helped with with cookie drives and stuff like that. Has it been touching to have people reach back out to you over the years and mention how scouting impacted them just because of your leadership and because of the leadership of, say, that particular parent who led that troop?
I tell you, Brian, I hear so many wonderful stories coming from parents, which is why they want to give their all. They want to invest their all in Girl Scout in any way they can, whether it's that parent at the cookie booth, whether it's that parent that say, hey, I'll drive these kids or I'll tell these kids about how to change your tire, whatever it is. And I always tease the guy, I said, you'll be a part of our organization. And they said, oh, I don't know. I said, are you man enough to be a Girl Scout? And they said they certainly are. But when I listened to some of the men talk about their daughters, they said Loretta, before she was in Girl Scouting, she was this shy, just withdrawn young lady. But then something magical happened when she became a part of the Girl Scouts. We build girls of courage, confidence, and character. And when those girls come out, when you invest in this program and you see that shy girl come out for the very first time to speak with courage, boldly about what is passionate about, I have no problems. We have over 3,000 volunteers that work in our organization. People talk about volunteers all the time and how it's difficult for them to get volunteers. We have over 3,000 volunteers. Now, we do struggle sometimes with finding the right troop leader, but we also want the right people to work with our girls. They have to go through background checks. They have to do, so we sometimes have problems finding the right leader, but I don't want to put the girls with anyone that I can't say, look those parents in the face and say, they're in good hands.
So we talked just briefly at the gala. You had a young lady, and I'm sorry I didn't write her name down, and for the life of me, I forgot to ask Ashley when I was setting this up. But the young lady who was in scouting and then at 18,
yes,
became a troop leader. Maybe even before that, put on a summer camp as a senior at Illinois State, I believe.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about her. Talk about somebody that almost looks like, I want to choose my words correctly here, and you can tell me if you have a better example of this. But after listening to you talk and listening to how she was described and seeing the little video of her, she almost looked like a cookie cutter of you in terms of her compassion and just overall love for scouting.
Kaylee Melton is just that. She is a lot like me in that she is from Alton, Illinois, very rural area in Alton, Illinois. I'm from a rural area myself in South Carolina, and Kaylee understands the roadblocks that are set before you when it comes to a rural area. Not having the resources available to you, having to really, really work hard to get those resources. And Kaylee is very, very passionate about Girl Scouting because she was that shy little girl that came out of her shell. And yes, she was a troop leader. She went through. She got her gold award. She got her silver award. She got all of these awards because of her passion. And when nobody else would work with those little girls, she raised her hand and said, I want to work with these girls. And I want to tell them, you can do it. And she's still telling these girls, you can do it. But Kaylee is also passionate about diversity. Very passionate about diversity. She went to the national convention with me 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, when we had it in Florida. And they were talking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Kaylee grabbed me that night, the night before. She said, we're going to talk about this at the national convention tomorrow, Loretta. And she said, but I don't ever think we ever had a problem. She said, I listened to you about Juliet Gordon-Low, and it's almost like we need to admit that we have some issues with diversity. And Brian, I could tell you, I could not wait for this young lady to stand up and tell these 15,000 people. And she stood up in front of the group, and they gave her 3 minutes to talk. And she said, just don't ever think we had a problem. And she brought up Juliet Gordon-Low. And she said, if we would just look at people as people and treat every human being right. And she talked about human rights. And if you treat everybody right, we would have none of these issues. So yes, Kaylee will always be with this council, even though she went to school in Springfield. She's going to come back next year, and I just believe that she's going to be employed here one day. Well, she was employed this summer, but I mean, like, really employed here.
So, everybody who's listening to this program, so traditionally I come up with a bunch of questions in advance just to make sure that our guests feel comfortable, and I think we've only touched on 2 of them. Maybe just because no, that's what I like. This is just great conversations, and that's me as the host. It's my job to more or less follow these, and at the end we will ask you about your favorite cookie. I will put you on the spot, but anyway, real quickly, a more serious question for you, Loretta. And Loretta Graham is our guest here on Ear to Ear MindsEye Radio. She is the CEO of the Girl Scouts of Southern Illinois. So we've talked a lot about culture and such. What age group right now is the one that you feel that scouting needs to reach the most? I mean, and I'll let you decide, daisies, the brownies, or is it the actual girls who are going into middle school or going into high school? I know that's a broad brush that I just painted with, but is there something that's in your opinion that there is a certain group of girls that scouting really needs to reach?
When it comes to our daisies, our 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7 years old, our brownies, our juniors, we those girls are in Girl Scouting. And people always say, oh my goodness, I hear parents say this all the time, I wanted my daughter to stay in Girl Scouting, but she too many other things. They have to go into sports, they have to go into this, they have to go into that. And I say to them, yeah, but it was because of Girl Scouting that they can be that captain of the team. They can be that leader in the classroom. So, but there is something that is going on right now with our youth, ages. I want to even start with the 5th grade on up. That I wish way back in a long time ago, Brian, we used to have Girl Scouting in the school day. Mm-hmm. I wish they would come back with that. Now, we still do it in East St. Louis. We've been doing it for over 30 years, and it does make a difference in the lives of those girls. So much are happening now with our youth. They have so many distractions when it comes to technology and social media and all of these things, that if they had that Girl Scouting, where they could come together and meet together. I think if there was any group that we would want to reach even more girls, it would be that age group.
And has it always been like that, or has it just been recently, you feel?
Well, it has been always, I shouldn't say always like that, but I want to say around, we started to see a drop in girls around the 80s. They started, basketball, and leaders couldn't understand why are they going to basketball? This is like Girl Scouting. Well, it's because of Girl Scouting that we built that courage, confidence, so
right.
they can do that. Mm-hmm. So I always say, once a Girl Scout, always a Girl Scout. But I also see here lately girls wanting to come back in Girl Scouting. Girls in the upperclassmen wanting to come back in Girl Scouting. So I always say, my mother always said, history has a way of repeating itself. And I feel like we're at that moment now where history is going to start repeating itself.
Well, it would be silly not to ask you this question, going back to yourself coming here in 2018. So what drew you to come to Southern Illinois, and what's the one or two things that are on your plate to accomplish here in Southern Illinois?
Well, the reason I came back to Southern Illinois is, I have an adopted son. We adopted him at birth. And my daughter, she was born and raised in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. And she got the best education possible. I am just really proud of the schools in North Dakota and what they do. My son was about 4 years old, and it was going to be time for him to go. And I felt like, and I had told my board chair in North Dakota, I said, listen, I just built my house. I'm not going to be in South Carolina long. I signed a 2-year contract, and I'll be back in 2 years. But after seeing that deficit, you had to stay. So 9 years later, I got the job here in Southern Illinois. And the reason I was looking is because I was not thrilled with the schools in South Carolina. I wanted my son to have an education in the Midwest somewhere. And the job came open here, and I applied for it, and I got it. So that's what led me. But I think when Bob Parado, the search firm, interviewed me, he said, Loretta, there's a few things you need to know about Southern Illinois. And I said, what's that? And he said, you always talk about not judging a book by its cover and blah, 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 blah. So this is what the search firm, he said, in Southern Illinois, you need to know they judge a book by its cover. And I said, well, I'm going to be the best book that they've ever seen. And I didn't know if I was going to get the job or not, but I did get it. And coming here in Southern Illinois, I kind of faced some of the same things that I faced in South Carolina, in that this council was at a huge deficit. And I'll never forget sitting down with Richard Mark, telling him all about what I needed to do here. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the rural areas, we serve 40 counties. And these rural areas there's not a whole lot for them to do. You can't walk away from that.
Right.
This council cannot die. I said to my head, in my head, this can't happen. This is all they have, some of these rural kids. We have to make sure that we not only survive, but we have to thrive. And so when I came here, and I really do believe that the board and the search committee was looking for someone like me, because I think they had heard about me from other places. I mean, if you Google me now in South Carolina, you will see me talking to the news media about why I had to do what I had to do there. Mm-hmm. So I came here and faced with volunteers that says, I went to the board. I said, we have to get financially stable, and this is how we're going to have to do it. So when I came here, I sold camps. I had to sell some camps. And in 2.5 years, I went from a $737,000 deficit to a $5.6 million surplus in 2.5 years. And we are much, 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 much more financially sound now than we was even then. So that 5 million has gone up. So again, looking at the need in the community, could we have let it die? We could have. But someone has to have a backbone enough. You know, you ever heard the saying, you know, the wishbone, you can have a wishbone, but then you have to have a backbone.
Right.
You can wish for a lot of things,
Right.
but you got to have the backbone to dare look at people in the face and say, we together have to do this. And I'm so proud of where we are in this council. And this didn't happen with Loretta alone. This happened with community working together, board working together, staff working together, and to ensure that these girls have a bright future here in Southern Illinois.
And you mentioned strong community partners as well. I know that's
Absolutely.
is huge. So, what is it like now in terms of? And this is a tougher question, and then we'll kind of lighten it up a little bit. Where is it in terms of the enrollment of Girl Scouts? We talked in the '80s about basketball, and you were saying that coming full circle is scouting in general. You feeling coming back, or is it just a steady flow of girls over, say, the last 15, 20 years? And that's including when you were in South Carolina.
When I was in South Carolina, I would say it's starting to come back because our membership was starting to raise in South Carolina. Since I've been here in Southern Illinois, we've seen drop in membership, but now the past, I want to say 3 to 4 years, we have seen a rise in membership, so much so that the national organizations have called me and said, what are you doing? Well, it's all about moving at the speed of those girls. Is it hard to get girls in Girl Scouting? Not if you're moving at the speed of the girls. We have to sit down. We have to listen to what they're passionate about, and we have to zero in on that. So our membership has increased this year. It has increased. It increased last year. The year before that, it increased. And I'm looking for it to increase, to continue to increase. Because we are definitely focusing on those astronauts. We're focusing on those girls that are passionate about making sure the food pantries are filled. We are focused on every girl and making sure that we are there for all of them.
Definitely an empowering situation for these young girls.
Yes.
All right, so now we're going to have a little bit of fun, and then I'll ask you one of my final questions, because sometimes I get on, I come up with a list and we don't touch on everything, and I want to make sure that I cover that. So, and this is probably a silly question, and you're probably going to say them all, but if your mother came to you in a dream and she said, Loretta, you can't choose every flavor of Girl Scout cookies because that's the right answer, and she told you had to pick one, am I going to get you in trouble if you have to pick just one?
No, not at all.
Which one would that be?
It would be the Samoas.
Okay, I was going to guess that for some reason. I thought that's...
I love coconut, and I love chocolate. If I'm going to go chocolate, anything with chocolate, the Thin Mints, people like Thin Mints. Okay. I like coconut and chocolate. If I'm going to go, what a way to go. Death by chocolate. So it is definitely the Samoas. Yes. I love those cookies.
I'm Thin Mint. The Thin Mint ice cream at the gala was a hit. Yes. So that was very, very creative. Well, as we wrap up, one of the things that I always ask folks is how can people who are listening to this program, what can our MindsEye listeners do if they want to get involved? they may want to make a contribution, or they may have a skill set that may, serve the Girl Scouts. I loved the example you gave of the dad earlier about him teaching about changing a tire, and that is an important life skill.
Yes.
Trust me.
Yes.
So is there anything that you can tell our listeners in terms of if they want to volunteer, if they want to give?
Well, I believe in that anyone can give a donation. I can say, we're in need of $25. People can do that. But there's something about investing that goes deeper. Whether you're investing your time, whether you're investing your money, whatever, some people may be investing by being an ear and being a bridge to bridge those differences. When you invest in this program, you know without a doubt that you have made a good choice. Because these girls are not only going to lead the world, they're going to change the world. I look at our country today, and everyone across America, Brian, is asking this question: who's going to lead? Who's going to be the next Alexa that actually think about our voting systems? Who's going to be the next creators to work? Who's going to be that? Who's going to be that president of Ameren, Illinois? And you know what I say? We have a badge for that. We teach girls from 5 years old all the way up to when they graduate from school how to be those leaders that America need them to be. So investing in this program, giving to this program, you can't go wrong. I always say there's an African proverb that says, the word yes may bring trouble. That's why we say no. We make excuses. We say it because we're too busy. We are doing enough already. I can't put one more thing on my plate. But Brian, hear me when I say there's a bigger risk in saying no. When you say no, you forfeit growth, you forfeit opportunity, and in the case of these Girl Scouts, you forfeit a chance to help them make this world a better place.
And that is a beautiful way to wrap up. Loretta, thank you so much for helping lead and empower the young girls and young women of Southern Illinois. It's been a wonderful pleasure having you on our ear-to-ear program on MindsEye Radio, and I hope we can do this sometime in the future and talk